All right, let's jump right in. Today we're talking about the Nobel laureate Tjalling Koopmans, an economist who did more than just add a new idea to the pile. He actually drew the blueprint for how we think about the future. So let's pull back the curtain on the hidden structure he helped create.
You know, when you look at economics from the outside, it can seem like, well, a total jumble of competing ideas, right? But what if I told you there's a deliberate structure under all that? A kind of hidden architecture that organizes how economists think, how they argue, and how they build on each other's work. So we're going to use this metaphor of an architecture to explore it all. And this isn't about a dry chronological history lesson. Nope. This is about understanding the fundamental pillars, the real load-bearing walls of modern economic thought. Now, this architecture is made up of 10 distinct arcs. Think of them less like chapters in a book and more like different dimensions of reasoning, different toolkits for analyzing the world. And today, we're zeroing in on one of the most foundational of them all, Arc 2, the logic of markets and allocation. At its very heart, economics has always been wrestling with one single epic problem. We have limited stuff, but we want basically everything. So the big question is, how do we make the absolute best use of what we've got, right here, right now? Arc 2 tackles this problem head-on. It's the whole theory of optimal allocation, but you know what the really important word on the slide is? It's static. The early theories were absolutely brilliant at figuring out the most efficient way to divide up the pie, but only at a single moment in time. And that framework was incredibly powerful. It gave us a way to understand market efficiency and solve for the best possible outcome for today. But it was missing something huge, a whole other dimension that shapes every single decision we make. And this is where Tjalling Koopmans enters the story. He's the architect who looked at that static blueprint of economics and basically extruded it into the future. He was the one who added the critical dimension of time. Koopmans took on a question that is both incredibly deep and ridiculously relevant. I mean, it's the same question governments wrestle with every single day. How much do we invest in green energy for our grandkids versus spending that money on healthcare now? He gave us a rigorous way to think about these massive trade-offs. And you know, his journey started with some very real-world problems. During World War II, he was literally figuring out the most efficient way to route ships to support the war effort, a classic allocation problem. But that practical work led him to this much, much bigger theoretical insight. Okay, so here's the crucial point. Koopmans didn't just describe economic growth. He reframed it as a problem that could be solved, an intertemporal optimization problem. That's the key phrase. He basically turned the question of our economic future into a solvable mathematical challenge. And that idea gave birth to the theory of intertemporal optimal allocation. So suddenly, it's not just about how to slice up the pie today. It's about figuring out the absolute best path for growing that pie over decades, maybe even centuries, to get the best possible outcome for all generations. Now, to solve a problem that big, Koopmans needed more than just a cool concept. He needed a formal blueprint. And that blueprint was written in the language of mathematics, giving us a precise, powerful way to map out the future. Okay, I know an equation like this can look a little intimidating, but don't focus on the symbols. Focus on the mission. Its goal is actually simple and, well, kind of beautiful. It's all about finding the one single path of consumption and investment that maximizes a society's total well-being, its utility, not just for a year, but summed up across all future generations, forever. So how do you find that perfect path? Well, the model gives us a core rule. It's called an Euler equation that basically acts like a compass. At every single moment, it tells you the exact optimal trade-off between the benefit of consuming one more dollar today versus investing that dollar to have more tomorrow. And this is what the solution looks like. These curves are the blueprint made visual. They show the ideal, optimal path for an economy's capital and its consumption over time. This isn't just a random guess. It's the single best path to maximize long-term prosperity. The impact of this intellectual leap was, well, it was immense. Koopmans didn't just solve one little problem. He laid down a whole new foundation for the entire field of macroeconomics and growth theory. So if we go back to our architectural map, you can really see the ripple effect. His foundational work back in Arc 2, allocation, became absolutely essential for Arc 10 on growth theory, Arc 7 on macro policy, and even Arc 1 by pushing forward the kinds of math and models that all economists use. He built a load-bearing wall that holds up huge parts of the modern structure. So what's the ultimate legacy here? It isn't a crystal ball. It's not a prediction, it's a benchmark. Koopmans gave us a rigorous, analytical yardstick to measure the real world against the ideal. This blueprint is the intellectual foundation for pretty much every modern debate on central bank policy, climate economics, and national savings rates. They're all trying to find that optimal path.
And that leaves us with one final big question. Koopmans gave us the perfect blueprint for the ideal economic path through time. So why, in our messy world of politics, short-term thinking, and global crises, is actually staying on that path still one of our greatest challenges?